dance, taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance. Telling me to dance, taking a chance.
Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of My Way, conversations with entrepreneurs doing business outside the box. I'm your host, of course, Jessica Dugas, and I'm super excited to be with you for another episode. And I cannot believe, Dr. Steve and I were just talking behind the scenes about, where does the time go? I have no idea. But this is the second to last guest that we're going to have on this series, and I'm super excited. I had the privilege, I would say, of going back through every single episode earlier today and compiling little bits and bobs for you guys that will show at the end of November. What a gold mine this series has been, truly. And I have no doubt at all that our guest this evening will add to that ever-growing pile of gold for sure, because I know that he does that truly in his business as well. See how this is all going to come together. It's going to be amazing. So our guest tonight, he was in high tech for many years. He's super multi-passionate like I am. When I met him, we connected on gratitude. We connected on music. We connected on marriage, on kids, on all of the different things. But what I love about his business and what intrigued me when I talked to him is that he helps people. He's one of the co-founders of Profit Minds. He helps people to find $30,000 to $50,000, like somewhere in that range of untapped revenue in their business. And I'm sitting here going, how is it possible to be missing that amount of money? But we're going to talk about that and so much more this evening. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Stephen Kirch to the show. It's good to see you.
It's good to be here, Jessica. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad we finally get the opportunity to do this because we met back in the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Where did the time go?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm thrilled to have you here. How has your 2022 shaped up for you? Like, have things gone the way you expected or hoped them to go, or what has this year been like for you?
Well, in some ways, yes. This year went spectacularly well.
Yeah.
In fact, I right part part of that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, I'm
Yeah.
sure, is that the methodology that I use, the PROtivity Growth System, allows me to engage clients in a way that, clients, when they finish year 1, sign up for year 2. And
Yeah.
clients, when they finish year 2, sign up for year 3. I mean, the only client that I've lost actually is one that I fired.
Mm.
Well, he stopped doing the stuff we were telling him to do. So
Mm.
when somebody becomes uncoachable, then you say, maybe it's time to part
Yeah.
ways. But and then recently, I got connected with, because I have a coach, right? In fact, I'm part of a coaching program. And I think everybody needs a coach. But as a part of that coaching program, I connected with the CEO of a company called Miracy, Danny Inney is his name. And he asked me to come on as interim director of operations for his organization. So I'm doing that as a part-time gig on top of my coaching, and on top of the Gratitude Network, and on top of my singing and my church work. And so my wife says, Steve, you've done retirement all wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say, aren't you supposed to be retired, Steve?
Yeah, I left corporate 6 years ago, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
Somebody called it employment optional, or work optional, right? And that's where I am, right?
Yeah.
It's retirement is it's not just sitting around anymore. I'm way too young to do that.
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree. And I think, my father is very similar to where, he was in the Navy for over 20 years. And then when he retired from that, he went on to do something else. And when he retired from that, my father is literally, this is not a joke, he's Santa Claus now. He's Santa Claus of Charleston, South Carolina. So that's what and then he does all these odd jobs. So I can't get him to sit down either. But it's one of those things where, like, my husband and I have had this conversation of, if we ever won the lottery, like, what would we do? I can't just sit and do nothing.
No.
Yeah. That would drive me insane.
I gotta stay active. I gotta stay learning. I gotta keep growing. Yeah,
for sure.
Let
me know if you guys are watching this evening. I know that I saw Brittany out there, and I know there's a few other of you guys here live with us, or if you're on the replay, I would love for you to tell us, when you retire, do you think that you will enjoy, travel, go to the beach, maybe do nothing, or do you think you'll be working? Let us know what you think as we have this conversation this evening. I mentioned,
by the way, Jessica, we love to travel.
Yeah, I'm sure you do that too.
So, I'm working, but I spent 3 weeks in September. My wife and I spent 3 weeks in Europe.
Amazing.
So.
I love it. I mean, I think it kind of, I think one of the myths that we have busted on this show this season is really that, you can truly have it all. You can do all of these things that you want to do and be happy and be paid well and be respected by your peers and have a life outside of your work. That you can do all of these things. And I'm so thankful that all of you as guests have shown us that. It's amazing to get to witness that, because it makes it seem possible for everybody else who's struggling to get that in their lives.
Yeah, it's true. I've been incredibly blessed.
Yeah.
And you mentioned gratitude, right? I'm on the board of directors of an organization called the Gratitude Network.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing. The impact that we're enabled to have, that we can have on social entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We provide leadership, growth opportunities. We're an accelerator, if you will, for social entrepreneurs or social enterprises that are helping children and youth all over the world. Growing and scaling those organizations. We estimate that over the last 5 years, somewhere between 40 and 50 million children have been impacted by the companies that we've worked with.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to tell you on a very personal note, you guys, a lot of you have tuned in to our Breakthroughs Around the World series that we've been doing on the Breakthrough Show. And Steve was instrumental in introducing me to the Gratitude Network. And we've featured some of those amazing entrepreneurs. And I don't even feel comfortable calling them entrepreneurs truly, because they're angels, like what they're doing in this world, and for the children. And it's been such an honor and a privilege to get to meet them. So thank you so much for that introduction. I am a better person now for meeting them and getting to see what they've done in the world. And I know so many people that have seen their episodes feel the same, that they're just so inspired by their work. Is that does that sort of, being involved with the Gratitude Network, does it sort of fulfill you as well? Do you see that and just go, wow, when you see the work that they're doing?
Well, of course, how can you
Yeah.
not be?
Yeah.
Right. The stories that we hear from these, these social entrepreneurs and the scaling that they've done with their organizations, the how can you not be inspired? And they're in, about a third of the organizations we work with are here in the U.S. We were working with an organization in Oakland that had been in Oakland, the Partners in Education. They've been in Oakland for 25 years. And after their year in the Gratitude Network, that slight change in their business model, they tripled in size in like 18 months. Wow. And they were not only in Oakland, but in Nevada and in Philadelphia, and they were talking to somebody in New York. And like a year or a year and a half after that, they got a $12 million grant from the Gates Foundation. So, that's a story here in the States. There are other similar stories. We have a number of companies in organizations in India, right, in sub-Saharan Africa, Central and South America. It's just amazing, the dedication of those founders, the people that are part of their teams. I'm getting to meet some of them as well. Just truly inspiring.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing their work that they're doing. And getting back to your story, it's amazing the work that you're doing. You went from, you were working in tech for a long time. How did you, I mean, were you just bored when you retired, or how did you make that switch ultimately from, being an entrepreneur or working in tech and then retiring and now an entrepreneur? Like, how did that transition happen for you?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. I have a PhD in physics. And so I did the engineering management thing for a couple of little companies you may have heard of. I was with IBM for about 10 years, a little bit less than that. And then Intel lured me to come to California. And shortly after, or maybe 2 or 3 years into my time at Intel, I was offered the opportunity to take the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, I'd read the book a number of years earlier. I read a lot. But when I took the course and actually implemented, it's funny, reading the book doesn't actually do you any good. Right? You actually have to do the work. Yeah.
What do you mean? We're supposed to just be able to read and our lives just magically change.
Magic. Right. But I found it transformational.
Yeah.
And so when I found out they were looking for facilitators, because they were going to roll this out to this entire organization, 1,500 people, quite an investment by the organization, by the organizational leaders. And they were looking for leaders within the organization to be facilitators, to really role model the whole 7 habits. So I signed up to be a facilitator. So I've been a certified facilitator of that material for 25 years.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And one of the cool things about Intel as a company is that they require all senior leaders to teach at least 3 classes a year. And so very often I would teach a course, either a section of the 7 habits or another course of that ilk, personal, organizational, effectiveness, productivity, those kinds of things. And as I contemplated this thing, which we call retirement, I thought, boy, it would be fun to continue to do that.
Yeah.
So when I, got the golden parachute, as it were, I got the incentive package to leave a little earlier than I had intended, but okay. I hung out a shingle as a productivity coach.
Wow.
So and I started networking and I got some clients, but what was really fascinating to me, and I'm sure you'll resonate with this as well as all the listeners. Small business owners have absolutely no clue what their time is worth.
Oh, say it again for the people in the back, Dr. Stephen. I mean, truly.
Small business owners have no clue what their time is worth.
I'm hiding. Go ahead.
So the problem, and look, I get it, right?
Yeah.
You wear 17 hats every day, right?
Yeah.
You're doing this and then this and then this, and all this stuff has got to get done, and somebody's got to do it, and it's going to take me longer to explain how to do it than just to do it myself.
Right.
That's a constant problem. I get it.
Yeah.
But if I'm trying to sell you on, I'm going to improve the value of your time, right? And you don't know what the starting value is, nor do you know what the ending value is. It's impossible to calculate an ROI. So I got a lot of different ways of people pushing back and saying, essentially, I don't know if it's worth it. And you can say, okay, Steve, you didn't do a good job of explaining the value of improving their time. But the fundamental problem was it's a math problem that doesn't work. If you don't know the numerator or the denominator of any of these, you can't do the calculation. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when, 3 years into this journey of entrepreneurship, that's when I came across the system that you alluded to at the beginning, where I can find $30,000 to $50,000 or more in untapped revenue for any small business in under 45 minutes.
That's a big promise. That's a large price tag. But it's hard for me to imagine like how someone could be missing that amount of money. But when you explained, I just had literally my own breakthrough moment over here, because in my own business, I had been trying to figure out how to describe something to the buyer. And I've been struggling literally this entire year, Steve, struggling. But I think what truly, as I'm sitting here having an epiphany, my brain is about to explode, because I think what I missed describing was the time piece of it, of how what I offer helps people to get their time back. And then we get into the conversation of how much so many of us service-based entrepreneurs undervalue our time and the results that we get for the time that we
yeah, well,
I cannot even.
That's a completely different part of my business. But we can talk about that in a little bit as well.
Yeah. I would love to dive in for a moment to productivity in general, if that's okay, because
Sure.
I know that that's something that you like to focus on in your work. I think that, do you find that it is more challenging for people now with all of the social media and all of the constant notifications and new things and all of it, is it more challenging these days for people to be productive than it was, say, 20 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I don't, maybe one of your listeners can come up with the right word. I've been struggling to try to find the word, the descriptor, but the way I talk about it is, 100 years ago, we were factory workers. Right. And then I believe it was Peter Drucker that coined the term knowledge worker. Right. So the factory worker just went in, did his or her job, mostly his job, went in, built the assembly, worked on the assembly line, was told what to do for 8 hours and went home. Right. The knowledge worker has to figure out what to do and how to do it.
Mm.
Right. That I think I want to say coined that term in, I don't know, the 50s or the 60s. Right. And the vast majority of us, certainly the vast majority of the people who are listening to this, are knowledge workers. We
Right.
have to figure out what to do and how to do it. Now, today, because of these devices, and the fact that we, for a while, were all forced to work at home, and actually some of us found some joy in that.
Yeah.
The I don't know if the right word is adaptive work or flexible work or something, but we have to figure there's a third element now. It's not only what to do and how to do it, but when to do it.
Right.
Because we can work literally 24/7.
Right.
We can also, of course, play 24/7. And then we get the whole thing about distractibility.
Yeah.
That it's, that's one of the fundamental things that I teach in my productivity courses is, how to handle distractions and procrastination. The vast majority of us, well, of course, the first mistake we make is the first thing in the morning we pick up our phone. Because then we're working on somebody else's priorities. We're reacting to what's there. Right. Whether you're looking at your email or looking at social media, whatever it is you're doing, you're not focused on your work. You're focused on what somebody else cares about. And so I encourage my clients to make a plan. I suggest Sunday evening. Monday morning works fine as well. But before you start looking at your email, what's the plan for the week? What are the one or two most important things that you need to do this week? Get those on your calendar. You don't have space for them. Well, if they're the most important things, you probably should move some other stuff around.
Right.
But make a plan for the week. What are the key intentions for the week? What are the most important, one or two most important things to do in each of the roles that you play, right? And because you can't separate, this work-life balance thing, right? You can't separate them because you are an integral person.
Right.
But make that plan for the week. Block out those times on your calendar. You're going to work on those critical projects or programs or activities, whatever they are. And of course, that works until about 5 minutes after 8 on Monday morning.
Yeah.
But when you have to, so you have to replan every day, right? I get that.
Right.
But again, look at what you accomplished yesterday. What do you still need to do this? What did you miss yesterday? Right. When you go at 8 o'clock in the morning to restart, but don't start by looking at your email. If I can tell a quick story.
Yeah.
The last couple of years that I was working at Intel, I had this epiphany that I was spending the first 2 or 3 hours every morning working on the emails that came in. I'd get 150, 200, maybe 300 emails a day, right? I would spend a couple hours working on email. And what I realized was, that first thing in the morning time, that's the time when my brain is best able to be creative and do things, really think about and add value to the organization. So I announced to my boss, to my team, I had a team of about 40 people at that point. And to my colleagues, I had like 10 people who were peers working for my boss. I announced to them that I wasn't going to be looking at my email until 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I said, but if you have something that you need me to look at before then, call me or text me and I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
My last year of working at Intel, you know how many times that happened?
Probably not many, I would assume.
Once.
Wow.
The message is clear, right? People are not sitting at their computer waiting for you to respond to their email.
Do you guys hear that? I mean, truly, we have become a society that of people who are now addicted to the instant gratification of the notification. And I think we feel like if we don't answer immediately, that the entire planet is going to implode.
And it's just not true. They're not sitting at their computer waiting for you to respond.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I do, by the way, I've turned off all the notifications on my phone, except three people, and they connect with me in one particular way. We use WhatsApp for my family, my wife and my 2 daughters. Every other notification is off. Because otherwise I can't focus, because I'm constantly distracted. Email coming in and text messages and, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I need to focus, turn it off.
Yeah. This is wonderful, though, because you are, in doing that small action, prioritizing what is most important to you in the moment. And I think when this conversation of productivity is something that I've even worked with when I was doing one-on-one coaching. I was working with my clients about it as well, because there's so many people that come to me and say, Jessica, I don't have time. Well, I believe that's a lie, because we're all given 24 hours in a day. It's what you do with it. And I think the two issues are, one, not, like you talked about, undervaluing our time, not realizing how much time we're even spending on things. Like, I would have them take like a 24-hour period where they took like a time inventory, and I would have them write down literally I don't care if you're making a meal, going to the bathroom, sitting on the porch, going to the store, whatever it is you're working, all of those things, write it down.
Yep.
And every single person was shocked at the end of it. Like, I have no idea that I was literally scrolling for 3 hours.
Yep. I mean, look, even if you only scroll a half an hour a day, right?
Yeah.
It's an incredible amount of time, right? It's like 2 days worth of work every month.
Yeah.
Right. A half an hour a day. That's 3.5 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's and it's addictive, right? And by the way, the makers of these devices do that intentionally. And the makers of the apps do that intentionally, right?
I think the other part of it too is really getting honest about our priorities and what we're prioritizing. I think even with myself, because I've known from the time that I came out of the womb that I was a very distracted person. I just get excited about things, and then I go that way. And then it's just the way I am. And so, but I've had to kind of rein that in a little bit and go, okay, you can make time for that, but you're going to make time for it. Like, you're not going to just do it at will, like in the middle of a conversation. Like, I'm not just, and then in the middle of our show, just go, Googling whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah. That also goes to, you mentioned that you like the new stuff, right? Everybody does.
Yeah.
Right. It's part of the myth of multitasking.
Yes, I'm so glad you said it's a myth.
People think that they're more productive when they're multitasking, in part because they feel better about themselves, because every time you do something new, you get a little shot of dopamine. Right? So because really what you're doing is rapid task switching. Your brain can't actually do 2 things at once. It's not physiologically possible. So you're rapid task switching. Now, computers are good at that, but we are not. And we're, that's self-distracting, and it is slower, because it takes a little time to go. And there are lots of studies, and there are games you can play to prove it to yourself. But trust me, you will go slower if you do this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, than if you do this, and then this. You'll get it done faster.
I feel so validated right now for every single time that I used to tell the moms that I worked with, multitasking is a lie. Like, I feel
you can multitask. It's just slower. It's not
the idea that we could give 100% equally to both. It doesn't exist.
No, not possible.
Yeah.
Not possible.
I love that though. I feel so listen, I don't, if anybody else is getting anything great, I'm completely fulfilled in this moment. But anyway, I want to get into a little bit of the work that you're doing now with Profit Minds, because we've talked a little bit about the revenue and everything, but I know you work with entrepreneurs in other way. Can you give us like kind of do you work with different people on different things, or do you have like a system that you used with everything? I know we see PROtivity in your description, but tell us a little bit about like how you work exactly.
So the PROtivity Growth System, which is my trademark system, is it's about building profit, accelerating productivity, and building business process for scale. So those are all pro words. And my daughter, who teaches writing at Columbia, came up with the word PROtivity. She thought we were actually in the line of Magic Mountain, I think. But that's another story. But so yes, I will work on growing profits, which is top and bottom line. It's how do you find that untapped revenue? How do you maximize the number of leads? How do you maximize the conversion? Each of them have a value, that you're making a profit in each line of business, that you're controlling expenses. All of those kinds of things are on the profit side of work. And then sometimes, I had a client come to me, or a prospect come to me with, I have a problem with my lead generation. He said, one month I'll have 30 leads, and then the next month I'll have 10 leads, and then I'll have 30 leads, and then I'll have 10 leads. And it just, I can't get it consistent. I said, your problem is not your lead generation. Your lead generation works fine. Your problem is productivity. Because you're not spending, when you have 30 leads, you're spending all your time servicing or trying to get those leads and turn them into clients. And then, so you don't have any time to spend on lead generation. So the next month you're at 10. Right. And then you got all this extra time because you only have 10 leads to work with. So now the next month you have 30, right? We need to figure out how to get it to balance the amount of time you spend working in your business and on your business. So productivity, which is about, setting inspiring goals, making sure you're working on your own priority, not somebody else's. That's don't look at your phone, but also, how do you set up your weekly and your daily planning process? Then, how do you handle your getting things done? What's your system for bringing in new inputs, handling your to-do list, how about email? How much time do you spend working on email? Can you have a handle on that? And I said, distractions and procrastination. It turns out there are 6 triggers of procrastination. And if you figure out what's triggering the procrastination, and you can figure out a workaround, like it's boring, well, go someplace that's not boring, right? Yeah. If it has no intrinsic value to you, well, maybe you need to create a reward at the end. It's something that you have to do, right? Yeah. So there's a whole system of productivity, right? And making sure that you're doing the right stuff. And then one of the things that I helped develop for the gratitude network, which we're using with our entrepreneurs now, is a whole business process for scale. I call it BOSS, the business operating system for scale. And it's about making sure that you know who's accountable for what. What are your goals? What's your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal? Why are you in business? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be 10, 15, 20 years from now? And then pulling that back in, okay, where do you want to be 3 years from now? And using a 3-year highly achievable goal and building back from that. Because most small business owners, when you say, where do you want to be a year from now? They say, well, I got this business and I think I'm going to grow 20%, or I'm going to grow 50%. When you think about 3 years from now, you can start thinking about some fundamental changes in what your business is going to be like. And you can say, well, okay, I'm going to add this line of business, or I'm going to add this product, or I'm going to add this service. And then you can start building back from that 3-year vision. Where do I need to be in 2 years? Where do I need to be in a year? And it creates a very different picture of what your planning should be for this coming year. And what do I need to work on right now that will take me to that 3-year goal?
I love that you're using the number 3 though, because I feel like so often I've been asked the 1-year question, and then typically it goes to 5 years, and that feels so far, like it's difficult for, yeah. It's like, it's too difficult for me to get there. And so 3 it feels more manageable. It feels like, okay, I can kind of get a grasp on that a little bit.
Yeah. And then it's, again, who's accountable for what? And it better not be that, the founder, the CEO, the entrepreneur is responsible for everything. Right. That's not a scalable business. Right? Yeah. If everything goes through one person, you got a bottleneck. So you got to figure out how to delegate, how to build a team. How do you attract employees? That's a huge problem right now.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, my trick there, I'll share it with your listeners, is that you need to treat that like a marketing problem. So the fundamentals of marketing, right, is that your prospects have a problem that they have that they don't want, and a result that they want but don't have. And you got to figure out how your product or service bridges that gap. I would argue that the same thing is true for prospective employees. If you treat that like a marketing problem, what is the problem that your prospective employees have that they don't want? Do they want a better working environment? Do they want better benefits? It's not just about pay.
Right.
So how does, and so what's the problem they have? What's the result that they want? And how does your company and the working environment and the benefits and all of the things like that, a career path or whatever it is, how does that help them solve that problem?
Yeah.
That's what you need to put in your job ad. Not that, I'm looking for a copywriter.
Right.
Or I'm looking for somebody to help me with social media.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm looking for a plumber.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about this is because you were talking about, and I think it's valid for a lot of people that are looking to expand their business to take on employees and to, go maybe teach a process that they're doing, etc. There are some people, I know a lot of people that watch the show who are solopreneurs, who are artists, or who are, when we're talking about expansion, obviously they're the artist, they're the thing that, that they're, so how do we look at expansion from that perspective? Like, do we look at like expanding like to a different line, or like how does expansion look for someone who doesn't have that plan to take on employees or things like that?
Well, so if you are trading time for money, right, you're limited.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the things that I'm doing now with Profit Minds, because I don't have time for more one-to-one clients. So first thing I did, of course, was to raise my rates. But in addition to that, I'm teaching coaches how to do this, right? To work in my system. I'm also going to be starting at the first of the year, I'm going to be starting a mastermind group where I can teach one-to-many. Someone who's an artist, well, artist in the way back, right, in the Renaissance, right, they took on apprentices who learned their style, and they came out of that school of art, right? That's a way to, you can teach a number of students, and maybe there's a financial arrangement where you can get a piece of the art, of their, or they license your methodology, or they pay you to train them, right? So again, one to many. That will make your art more valuable if there are more people doing it, but you're the original.
Mm.
So there are, there are ways of thinking about, scaling a business that's not just, not just, you can't just trade time for money.
Right. Yeah.
You have to think about it in a fundamentally different way. As I said, I'm looking at group coaching. I'm looking at, teaching other coaches.
Yeah.
Entering into partnerships.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned there are ways to do it, though, because I think there are many, whether they are an intuitive, an artist, a musician, whatever that is, like, it comes down to them. They're the person. I think when they talk to coaches and things like that, and the coaches start talking this language about scaling and employees and all of it, they lose them. And then that's it. And then I feel like it's sort of, for these creatives, it sort of sucks the life out of them for a minute. They're like, well, now I'm done. Like, I don't even know where to go from this. So I'm glad that you're talking about that there are ways to look at it. You just have to look at it differently.
Right. You cannot, again, what got you here isn't going to get you there. That's always true. And there will be a limit. If you limit the business model, there will be a limit to how much you can make.
And I think, would you agree that that's okay for people that are okay with that?
Like, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. It doesn't have to be your ambition to make $1 billion. How much is enough? That's a good question.
I love that because I think it's challenging for so many creatives that I know in the entrepreneur world, whose vision is to have enough to live and to do the fun things that they want to do and to serve, and they're good with that. But there's a lot of times I'm going to step on somebody's toes here, but there is this feeling sometimes in the entrepreneur world that, like, the concern has to be the money, but that's not everybody's objective.
No, I would argue it shouldn't be. Because even people that well, I would say that people who are driven solely by money are never going to be happy. And I think one of the things that drives us as a species is the desire to be happy. Now, they may think that by having more money, they're going to be, more money makes them happier.
It hires maid that I need with these kids.
Sure. But really fundamentally, it's more about, well, I don't have to clean the house. I can then spend the time with my kids.
Yeah.
Right. But if you say, well, now I've got enough money, I can hire this maid so I can work more, so I can make more money. Well, how has that helped you be happier?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one less thing for you to do, but you're not building relationships. You're not having experiences. The people that I know that are truly content are the people that have amazing experiences.
Yeah.
Right. Like my wife and I went for 3 weeks to Europe and had just an amazing time. Met some wonderful people.
Yeah.
And we're going to Hawaii for a couple weeks in January, and we have a cruise around the Iberian Peninsula scheduled for May. And we're going to travel.
Yeah, it's amazing
because it's about experiences. We went and did a Broadway weekend with our girls in New York. I was there in Boston and New York, and saw a couple of shows. We saw Hugh Jackman in The Music Man, which was incredible.
I'm so jealous now. You got come put me in your suitcase. I'll travel with you. I love it. I'm so excited to be back here in New England and eventually take my kids to Broadway. That was one of my favorite experiences growing up, being so close to New York City here, and it's unmatched by so much else. I can't wait to do that. But
yes,
that's amazing. And I know Brittany's been chiming in the audience as well, that she agreed with you that it's not always, people have different objectives in their business, and said she's definitely slower when she tries to multitask. That's not a thing that she does. And she said maybe when we were talking about retirement, she said maybe at first she would be still, and then she would get back to work after a little while. So
I lasted a couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you had a couple of months at least to kind of sit
Yeah.
down for a minute. I'm so thankful that we've been able to have this conversation this evening, because we've touched on so many things that I've wanted to touch on in this series as well. And I think that it's going to help a lot of people out there too. So do you have any, as we start to close up here, do you have any thoughts for people about, other than hiring you, which they clearly need to do that, like how they can start getting into the mindset that maybe they're missing out on some revenue in their business?
Yeah. Well, you can certainly go to my website and download my free ebook,
Hey,
Mind Your Profits, and take a look at that. But it's really, I like to say, right, I have a PhD in physics, and what I teach people is not rocket science. I can do rocket science, and this is not rocket science. It's basic, it's time-tested principles around, how do you reach out to your prospects? How do you find them? How do you reach out to them? How do you build partnerships? We didn't touch on that at all. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
That thinking about, and by the way, for somebody that's making, let's say, revenue $300,000, a modest business, right? If you just make a 1% change in 2 or 3 areas, right? That's, 1% of $300,000 is $3,000. Yeah. Right. So just a few areas, right? You can start to chip at that. The other, I think there are 2 sort of crucial things that many small businesses don't think about. One is raising prices. You take your prices up 5%. How many clients will you lose if you take especially today when inflation is running at, almost 10% anyway? People are starting to expect a little bit of, gosh, my expenses are going up. I just need to write on, but you have to lose more than 5% of your clients. You can do the math in order to have less revenue. Yeah. Right. So you raise your prices 5%. You think you're going to lose 10% of your clients? Probably not. Yeah. So that's one. And the other thing is look at your expenses. Really, really crucial to look at your expenses. So many entrepreneurs, they sign up for this service because they think they're going to use it, and they don't. But it's an auto spend. It's look at your credit card bill. I'll bet you can find 5% there. And if you're running a $300,000 business, right? And let's say your profit margins, your net profit is 10%, which is sort of typical for a small business, $30,000 profit. Yeah. Okay. So if you raise your prices 5% and find 5% in expenses, your profit margin goes to 20%. You've doubled the amount of money that's in your pocket. Yeah. Small changes. Yeah.
That's really encouraging, because I think sometimes we hear, like when we read on your website, between 30 and 50,000, we're like, that's a big number to find, but it's really like just those little things. And we've learned throughout this series, we've had a couple different financial people on here that if we're going into business because we're passionate about the work that we're doing, most of us are not we have not gone to school to learn how to look at our business finances or what we need to, all the logistics behind the scenes, and so we sometimes I'm learning the lesson the hard way of you get, because I didn't expect to be in business for myself. It was something that just sort of happened. And so now I didn't look at in the beginning far enough ahead to go and work backwards from there, like you were talking about. Now it's having to switch a lot of things, and which is just annoying. It's what it is, and it's not fun for my time. Brittany said that she definitely struggles with prices as time, but she's learning she's worth the raise, which I love as well.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Jessica, that whole thing about, that's the E-myth, right? Is the small business owners get into business because they're good at what they do, not because they're good at business.
Yes.
Right. And it's, you need to find a coach. You need to find somebody who can help you with a different pair of eyes.
Yeah. It's so helpful, that other pair of eyes, especially because look, to be honest, and I've said this to so many people this last week, it's so funny that as much as people tell you to not get your emotions involved in business, I feel like the things that I've created are something I've created, and I am attached to them. They mean something to me. It feels like another one of my kids. It's something that I birthed into this world. And so it's challenging to do some of the things that we've talked about tonight, just because it's hard. It's hard to look at it in a different way. But at any rate, one of the last questions that I've been asking everybody on this series this year is that if somebody's watching the show right now and they say, I don't know if I can do business my way. My mom is telling me to do this. My coach is telling me to do this. My the other person that does the same thing I do I just don't know that I can do this. I feel like I'm stuck. I can't move forward. What would you say to that person who's simply feeling frustrated where they're at in their business today?
I guess there's a couple of ways to attack it. I've said, get a coach, but if your coach is telling you one thing and you got all these, think about why you are in business. Why did you start the business? What really matters? What are you trying to accomplish? And does the direction that they're telling you to go take you toward that or away from it? That's a fundamental principle, Dr. Covey. It's habit 2, right? Begin with the end in mind. Why did you start? What's the purpose? The Simon Sinek says, start with why. But it really is, let's think about what drove you to begin the business in the first place. What were you passionate about? What kind of problem did you want to solve for yourself and for your clients, for your customers?
Yeah.
And is the advice moving you toward that or away from it?
I love that. And going back to where you started, I think you're right that so many of us get into our work because we're good at what we do, or we're passionate about our message or whatever it is. But when all of this stuff, I've really felt that from so many people lately that get into business for themselves, and then they find themselves at this crossroads or this place of frustration because they're overwhelmed with all of the things that they were not trained on. They didn't know. They thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to be a millionaire by tomorrow. It's going to be fabulous, and then they're hit with all of these things, and they're like, I just didn't know. And then you've got all the people that tell you this is how you should be doing your business, and no, this is how, and no, this is how. And it becomes overwhelming and frustrating, and it really does suck that. It can very easily suck that creativity and that passion right out of it, because then now you're overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is, almost no decision is permanent.
Mm. Oh, that's good.
Right? So try it. Pick one.
Mm.
And tell the other people who are giving you different advice, look, I'm going to go this way for a while. I'm going to see how it works.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And that's a great idea and great advice. Because sometimes we feel like if I choose this, it's going to be the end of all the things. Like it's going to be the last decision I ever make, but that's not, we convince ourselves of silly things sometimes, I think. Dr. Stephen Kirch, what else can people find on your website when they go to visit profitminds.net to see you?
So I do have a free conversion equation evaluator. It's a PDF that will help you understand how well your marketing material is working. There's a quiz that you can take called the profitquiz.com, I think is the URL. I'll make sure it's in the show notes appropriately. Yeah. So there are things like that. Ask me anything. There's a place you can ask me a question. And so, yeah, and I'll be announcing, the upcoming mastermind course and mastermind starting in January. That will be out there shortly. It's not up yet, but I'm redoing my website, so it really talks more about the whole PROtivity Growth System and not just about profits.
Yeah. I love that. So. I love it because you needed something else to do. So we'll just fix your website while we're at it. I love it. I love it. Well, I wanted to, before we finish, I wanted to bring up that you love music. And but you're very, like, you're into all of these different things, but he can sing and sing beautifully. And I would love for you to tell us if you've been doing any of that lately and how that's been going.
Yeah. So I'm with a group called the Fog City Singers.
You can watch the videos on YouTube. You guys go look.
Yeah, it's a men's a cappella group. Most of us are not as old as I. Most of the guys are actually pretty young. But it's a group out of San Francisco. We are a chapter in the Barbershop Harmony Society. So we competed this last summer in the international competition of the Barbershop Harmony Society for choruses. Now this is choruses more than four guys, more than four people. Actually, the Barbershop Harmony Society now allows mixed quartets and mixed choruses as well. It's not just men, but we competed in that competition and we finished 9th in the world.
Wow. That's amazing.
Pretty proud of that.
Yes.
It's and we were the smallest group in the top 10.
Wow. How many members are there total in your group?
In our group, I think we had 28 on stage. Some of the groups are, 90, 100, 120. They're huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, the music that we make, and we don't do just barbershop. We do all different kinds. If you go to YouTube, we do all kinds of a cappella music. I
love it.
It's so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw, and it's so funny that I saw this literally this morning as preparing for our conversation this evening, that for the local choral here, and I haven't sung with a group in years, and I know you and I had talked about that initially when we met back at the beginning of the year, and I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go figure out how I can be a part of it, because it really, it brings so much to your life. And I think so many of us are trying to find a way to connect all of these different things that you can do, but you sometimes it's nice to just have that one thing that's like separate and it's your peaceful place. And music is definitely that for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me as well.
I love it. I love it. I'm so glad we got to talk today, like I said, and I would love to have you back on and talk about 8 million other things next time.
Happy to come back. So
it would be a lot of fun. You're so welcome anytime. And I'm thrilled that we were able to do this. And thank you again for the work that you're doing in your business, but also with the Gratitude Network. You're just doing so many amazing things. And taking time for yourself, which is good to see too with your beautiful wife as well. I love it. Thank you for being here, Stephen. I appreciate you so much. I want to thank all of you guys there's been so many people in and out today. It's been good to see so many people watching this evening. And don't forget to leave your comments on the replay as well. We are going to be back in a couple weeks for our final guest of the season. And then we'll be back the last Tuesday of the month for a little recap of all these amazing guests that have been on this season as well. It's going to be, you're going to cry, you're going to take notes. It's going to be fabulous. So excited about that as well. Don't forget Divine DNA is coming up tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We are not on standard time yet, almost there though. And we've got some amazing stuff coming up on the network. So be on the lookout for that as well. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas. This has been Dr. Stephen Kirch, and we'll see you next time on another episode of My Way. Hi, I'm Jessica Dugas, and while you might know me as the creator of the Breakthrough Show Network, I'm also a mom of 6 children. Once I became a mom, I realized very quickly that not all children everywhere start out with the same resources and support in life. Recently, I learned of an organization that believes that no child anywhere should be marginalized. The Gratitude Network identifies visionary social entrepreneurs who are working with children and youth around the world and provides them with the capacity-building resources to grow their organizations to impact 5 to 10 times more children or youth in scalable and sustainable ways. The Breakthrough Show Network is proud to host several of the world-changing entrepreneurs that are part of the Gratitude Network. If you're a social entrepreneur who serves the youth of the world and would like to learn more about being a part of the Gratitude Network, or if you're a person or business who would like to support the mission of the Gratitude Network, I invite you to visit gratitude-network.org to learn more. Together, we can improve the lives of children and youth around the world.